In 2008, a little film came out called Iron Man. You may have heard of it. It would launch the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it was also famous for not exactly having the entire thing planned out. Jeff Bridges would call it the most expensive student film he ever worked on, with the script still being written while they were on set, and much of the dialogue improvised by actors. It also had to undergo extensive reshoots and re-edits. Despite this, the movie was great and launched the most profitable franchise in history. Since then, Disney and Marvel have created the perfect movie factory, churning out well-proofed scripts with flawless pre-visualization for a smooth production. I'm just kidding. They've learned nothing, and they're still repeating all the same mistakes as their first movie. Except this time, a decade later, they failed to recapture that lightning in a bottle. The Marvels is this just unmitigated, chaotic mess of a film. But why? What went so wrong? How did the House of Cards fold so catastrophically? I could point to some snowballing problems for Marvel, issues pointed out in countless other videos by other creators. And oh boy does the Marvels just, highlight all of their current headaches. But perhaps there's a more singular culprit in this case. Nobody cared about this movie. I'm not talking about the audience, even though they too seem pretty ambivalent to its existence. I'm talking about everyone involved in making it, from producer Kevin Feige to director Nia DaCosta to even some of the actors. The film just feels like a mandate. It got put on the board as make a girl teen movie. It has to be made. It's going to be made, and we're going to make it. Never mind that we don't have a story worth telling or anyone passionate behind the camera. Think I'm wrong? Well, the director, it turns out, left this project to go work on another passion project before this one was even finished. The main star reportedly said she may not want to come back for any more movies before this one even got released. Now, granted, she did receive unfair hate online for the role, so that's kind of understandable, but still, not great. There is a bigger issue at play. It's easy to care about a movie that has, actual scenes, character arcs, and rising, falling action, that sort of stuff. It's a lot harder to care about a movie that is just a series of sequences taped together with expository dialogue and half-baked action sequences. That's because most movies have scripts. I'm not sure the Marvels had a script. This felt like a bare-bones treatment at best, or, more likely, scenes haphazardly cobbled together in extensive reshoots during post-production. A directionless movie from an uncaring director that got her paycheck and then just took off to her next project to leave this soulless affair behind. Who can blame her? Well, me, I guess, but she shouldn't have taken the job if she didn't have a story that she really wanted to tell. Remember when the Russo brothers took the Winter Soldier because they wanted to make their own 3 Days of the Condor? That's a vision. Maybe Marvel was too focused on having a woman in the director's chair rather than someone who they felt had something just unique and interesting for these characters. Diversity does have authentic real value, and I mean that, but only so far as that diversity is grounded in real relatability and authentic passion. For such a scriptless movie, I can't completely blame writers Megan McDonald or Elisa Karasik either. The fault isn't completely on them, but a lot of it is. There's a big buck to pass around for a studio that seems to have lost its touch on how to tell a story from the ground up. A movie starts with a script, with a pitch and a vision. As much as people are saying they should bring back Robert Downey Jr. or, the Russo brothers, the real people they should consider bringing back is Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely. Those two seem to have a pulse on what fans and the audience wanted from this universe. They were responsible for the first Avenger, the Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame, as well as additional writing credits on other movies. They knew this world and characters, giving the impression of fans making something for fans. If there's two things that's four. But if there are two things the Marvels is missing, it is passion for the characters and a cohesive vision. The movie is tonally inconsistent. It leans closer to, a comedy more than anything else, and it really wants to be a quirky comedy like Guardians of the Galaxy. The problem is The Marvels is one of the most incompetently unfunny movies I've seen this year, with both screenwriters having no real comedies under their name. The closest is probably McDonnell with WandaVision, but that was almost like this weird Twilight Zone take on comedy with kind of these unnerving undertones. Karasik, meanwhile, has nothing more than a handful of Loki episodes, and comedy certainly is not Nia DaCosta's bread and butter. Her biggest claim to fame is horror, most notably with Candyman. Nia DaCosta is no James Gunn, clearly. The result here is some of the most cringe-inducing attempts at being funny I've seen from this franchise. There's an entire scene where our protagonists go to a musical planet where everyone sings and dances. And it's so kind of just, ugh. I literally sank into my theater chair from secondhand embarrassment. And the comedy is inconsistent even for certain characters in the franchise. It doesn't make sense for where certain people are in their story. Last we saw Nick Fury, he was going through this sort of, late life crisis where he's just kind of having this breakdown. But here, he's Mr. Comedian. Between this formula for anti-comedy, the Marvels is making just clumsy attempts at drama. Gunn could balance the melodrama and absurdity of his world, mixing the ludicrous with heartfelt moments. Most drama here feels just manufactured, most notably between Monica and Carol. Monica blames Carol for not coming back as promised when she was a kid. But Monica is a 36-year-old adult. Carol left to save, planets and galaxies, including Earth in Endgame, where she, helped resurrect Monica's ungrateful life. Oh no, she didn't come back to babysit you as a baby. Boo-hoo. You are a grown woman. Come on. You should understand this. Grow up. At least that's a relationship, though, which is more than I can say for Kamala and Carol's interactions. These boil down to nothing more than Kamala fangirling over her idol whenever she takes a break from screaming, "Oh my God," at the top of her lungs every 15 seconds. Keep in mind, I like this character. Well, Miss Marvel, that is. Not Captain Marvel. In fact, Kamala may be the only actual character out of the trio. I think Brie Larson is great in a lot of other movies like Room, but they've failed to make Captain Marvel interesting, likable, or really compelling in any way. Monica, meanwhile, played by Teyonah Parris, is barely developed beyond, Mrs. Her Mom. That's an emotional beat. That's not a character. Kamala, however, had a full series to kind of develop this character out. And although that series was very flawed and, in my opinion, kind of fell apart midway through, at least it made me like this character and want to see more of her. To her credit, Iman Vellani, she seems to be the only one really trying. But this movie, it just gives her nothing, and she has no arc. It's especially frustrating when the arc was right there. Never meet your heroes. What if Kamala met her hero and finds out that maybe she doesn't like her that much? She is cold and distant, and so godlike that she has lost touch with her humanity. Maybe they surprisingly just don't get along, and Kamala has to accept her as an actual person rather than what she had in her head. And Carol has to get back in touch with her Earth side through just this very normal teen girl. Well, by golly, that would be an actual relationship with somewhere to go. Instead, Carol snaps at her once, and then the three instantly bond over their powers. Great, cool, wonderful. Mostly the fantasy still plays out how Kamala imagined, and that's not really all that interesting. The villain doesn't really save this boring trifecta. Marvel has made leaps and bounds with their villains, especially in Phase 3. Lady with a Stick may be the worst villain yet, and that's saying a lot. No, I don't actually remember her name, and no, I'm, not gonna look it up. It's really not worth it. The actress Zawe Ashton may be trying, but the writers just gave her dirt, I guess. Her motivation's lazy, she has no interesting personality, and she doesn't even have interesting powers. She just exists to be punched. And punch her they do, in some of the most forgettable action scenes imaginable. You had such a cool concept here. 3 heroes that switch places with their powers. Imagine just, the possibilities and creativity you could have had with these sequences. But that creativity expired after just the first act. This is the best part of the entire movie, and it's over in the first 15 minutes. After that, all the swapping stuff, it just feels, just kind of like a second thought as we devolve more into these poorly planned out action scenes with loud noises and bright lights. It all ends on a boring confrontation outdone by that first act. Don't even get me started on the multiverse elements that are just kind of half-heartedly thrown in at the last minute. All action is taking place in these small, confined sets that make me just long for those creative open spaces that we saw in The Creator. Maybe this is another case of COVID restrictions like with Quantumania, but by now, I'm feeling far less forgiving. When we're not in tiny halls and white rooms, we're in these generic computer-generated landscapes with CGI artifacts just, smashing into each other. So we've got bad action and no character arcs. Even worse, there's no story. Want to know what the story is? Here it is. A generic bad person wants to open portals and destroy worlds and needs a MacGuffin to do it. Action scenes ensue for an hour and a half, toss in some nonsense technobabble exposition and some bad pacing, and that's it. There's your movie. No exaggeration. At least this thing is just mercifully short. This is a failure on the most basic levels of storytelling. Stories start with an engaging idea, a spark. It is the incubator for greatness. Maybe there was a vision at some point. Maybe if DaCosta had been allowed to do that time travel movie that she wanted to do, it would have been great. Maybe there was an actual script at some point and it didn't work out, so the studios did reshoots and rewrote to make it more watchable. Although the term right in this case almost feels offensive. I wish this movie had proved everyone wrong, even the most visceral naysayers. But regrettably, it ends up just giving people more ammunition for why Marvel is falling apart. Marvel needs a wake-up call. It needs to be reminded that stories start from the conceptual phase, of vision and passion for the material that then moves into scripting, then shooting. Not everything is Iron Man. Not everything can be made great with a fix-it-in-post mentality. If they don't realize this soon, then it won't be another nail in the coffin, it'll be the last. And for a longtime fan, I hope it isn't. But on another note, after watching this, I went home and watched the finale of Loki, which was phenomenal and helped restore just a little bit of faith I had. This is the frustrating thing with Marvel right now. They will give you a lazy, just soulless project like the Marvels, and then show you something with the old Marvel magic that gives you hope. They are still competent and capable of giving us good stories. It's the consistency that seems to have gone out the window. And that's all I have for this video. To see more historical content and modern movie analysis, please subscribe. And please, keep those reels turning. Thank you.